Yeah, I think it's a great question when trying to understand the opportunity. I think it's got to boil down to, at the end of the day, what does the consumer do and how do you want them to change in what they do. So we do a lot of research to understand what is consumer behavior, and we looked at, are we offering better value? Are we offering better choice? And is it easier to rent and watch films than what happened in the past? And I think knowing that the answer was yes to all those questions meant that I think we had a great opportunity. The challenge then was, how do we execute it and make it happen? And that's always the hard part, right? Yeah, I think the good thing in the early days is that we had, money from venture capitalists that gave us a bit of time to try and experiment and work, right? Because often, that's the hard time, getting through the valley of death, as I call it, when entrepreneurs start off is really hard to get through. So for us, just constantly experimenting, working with it, doing research, understanding how it worked was sort of the key at the very start. The other thing was also watching what else was going on in the market. There were similar types of businesses in the US, there were some businesses emerging, each of which had a slightly different twist on the same theme. So learning from other people's mistakes is also a lot easier than learning from your own. Yeah, I think when you look at your marketing, the trick is what is the halo effect of all that marketing and bringing people in? And often activity that you do online, advertising, affiliate type marketing, partnerships, direct mail, all those other things sort of mop up a demand that you've created because the word and mouth is working. And often I think that, when people hear about our business for the first time, it sort of creates an awareness and an interest, but they haven't quite got the call to action. So what we need to do is ensure those two work together. And certainly when we started to do TV advertising, I think we got a lot of subscribers, that way, but not all of our subscribers as a result of the TV came in via TV. Some of them came in lots of different other ways that we were doing out there. So the two working together is critical. And I think in the early days, you obviously have to start on the cheaper stuff, right? And then ultimately build up to some large activity like TV and etc. But, keeping smart about how you manage the marketing budgets is critical in the early days. Yeah, so what we did in the early days is we looked at, were there partnerships, were there magazines that had readers that we could offer them a deal, and the deal we would end up paying them was based on how many subscribers we got rather than a fixed fee. So it's what I call variable marketing rather than fixed fee marketing. And the more of that stuff meant that actually you weren't liable for big expenditure and not get many subscribers in. So being as variable as you can in the early days, looking for partnerships, looking for variable ideas. We did a deal at one stage with service stations on motorways where we had posters up, and we tried to do a variable deal where we paid them on the number of subscribers we had as a result of that, rather than actually paying for all the posters in the first place. So if you can be creative about the type of promotions you do, often you'll be surprised at what marketing you can do in the early days. Yeah, I think cash flow management is critical for a business. I mean, many businesses don't survive that first year or so just because they don't have enough cash, they run out of cash, especially as you're growing. Sometimes the worst thing you can do is grow exponentially and have to pay out lots of cash. So, getting that right balance between cash in, services we provide, bills out to suppliers, managing that so that it's what I call positive cash conversion cycle is critical in the early days. And I think we spent a lot of time in the very early days getting that right. You imagine if you have to buy a DVD, rent it out, send out the post, do those other things, it can get quite expensive. So getting that right is critical, and if you don't get it right, it's an expensive lesson. I think you just have to manage those relationships like you would anything else, right? You have to be open, honest. The moment that there's suspicion that people aren't, showing everything that they should be showing, that's when things begin to break down. So, be honest. If there is bad news, bring it to them immediately and talk to them about how we can work together to resolve it. If there's great news, sharing the success together and then making that work. And I can't fault the VCs. They backed us all the way, all the time, and the business wouldn't have grown the way it is without them. But now we've moved on to a different sort of investor, and the same sort of rules apply. Get them involved, get them engaged, motivate them, and get them interested in the business, and share the news as and when it happens. I think it's a lot of it is the confidence you go into the relationship. If I think about the early days of Video Island and Love Film, we were able to do deals with Tesco and with Sainsbury's and WH Smith and these sort of people and Easy, even though we were a much smaller brand. And what we did is we borrowed some of their scale, size and brand reputation, if you like, in the early days. And so that was a conscious decision that we made. And as we built our own brand, we then said, actually, we don't need them as much. So have confidence, believe in your product and believe in the service that you're offering, and make sure it's a win-win. If you try and get all the benefit of the relationship and they get none, it's not going to work and it's not going to last, and you're going to fall out about it. So, keep that win-win relationship where there's still some money on the table for your partner, as well as what you do, in terms of getting returns from it. But when the time is right and the partnership has come to an end, don't be afraid to walk away from it.